It was 2 a.m. I was barefoot in the kitchen, staring at an empty freezer. My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm a mother, a widow. And that night, I was just a woman holding back tears while my baby cried in the next room. Grace was only 3 months old. She had been doing so well thanks to breast milk I'd carefully pumped and frozen. Every ounce was labeled timed dated, a lifeline built out of love and exhaustion. But that night, it was all gone. I opened the freezer 3 times. Maybe I'd made a mistake. No, it was empty. The milk wasn't misplaced. It was taken. My chest tightened. My body was ready to feed, but Grace had trouble latching. That frozen stash was our safety net, our plan B, our peace of mind, and it had vanished. I whispered Mom into the dark hallway. No answer, just Grace's soft sobs growing louder. Have you ever trusted someone with everything only to realize they didn't see your pain as real? If you've ever felt dismissed, unheard, like you and your child came second, stay with me. This story is for you. Because that night, I lost my baby's food. But what I found was far more powerful. I didn't want to panic. But something in me already had. Grace's cry pierced through the quiet, small, sharp, needing me. I took a breath, steadied myself, and called out. Mom! She appeared in the doorway, calm as ever. Silk pajamas, hair still neat. Annoyed, I'd woken her. Behind her, I could hear Tiffany's voice, laughing, baby talking, not to Grace, but to Sparkle, her dog. Mom didn't even look guilty. Oh, we used it for Sparkle, she said. Casual, like it was nothing. I blinked, thought I misheard. You used what? The milk, she shrugged. Tiffany read, somewhere breast milk is good for puppies. Sparkle's been having stomach issues. This was natural. I stood still. Completely still. My heart was pounding, but everything else felt numb. Sparkle wasn't a child. She wasn't family. She was Tiffany's 3-layer designer dog, wore little outfits, had her own Instagram, but that milk, that was for Grace. That was hers, my daughter. I took a step back. Just one. Something broke in me right then, not loudly, quiet, cold. Have you ever felt someone take from your child and act like it didn't matter? Because that's when I knew they didn't see Grace as family. They didn't even see her at all. I raised my voice. I couldn't help it. That was Grace's milk, I said. Her food. You knew that. Tiffany walked in holding Sparkle like a newborn. She smiled proud. Her coat's already shinier. It's working, she said. Breast milk is like magic for puppies. My hand started shaking. I wasn't yelling yet, but inside something screamed. Dad wandered in, still half asleep, scratching his belly. What's going on? He asked. I told him, straight out. They gave my baby's milk to Tiffany's dog. He didn't flinch. She's a puppy. She needs nutrients, he said. Stop being so dramatic. Dramatic. Selfish. That's what they called me for wanting to feed my daughter. My baby, my grieving, hungry, crying baby. I told them formula was expensive. Grace couldn't tolerate it. She tried, vomited, got sick, then pumped more. Mom said, "It's free from your body." I laughed, not from humor, from disbelief. That's not how milk works. Not after stress. Not after betrayal. But they didn't care. They never had. I moved back here when David died, 7 months pregnant, alone. And instead of support, they gave me the basement. Mold on the walls, cold floors, no windows. Meanwhile, Tiffany's dog got a renovated nursery. They said they loved Grace, but their actions, their choices, said something very different. Grace's cry got louder, sharper, desperate now. I ran to her, held her close. Her tiny hands reached for me like she was asking why I wasn't fixing it. My breasts were full, yes, but she still struggled to latch. That's why I pumped every 3 hours, so she wouldn't go hungry when she couldn't feed directly. That frozen stash, it was our backup, our safety net, my peace of mind, gone. I sat on the edge of the bed trying to calm her, tried to help her latch again. She pulled away, cried harder. I felt it, the stress, the panic, my body locked up, the milk wouldn't come. Let down reflex blocked, my baby still crying. Tiffany passed the door just then, holding Sparkle like royalty. She's doing amazing, she beamed. Sparkle finished a whole bottle of the breast milk. Her tummy's way better now. I stared at her. Couldn't speak, because my baby was starving and they were celebrating the dog's digestion. Have you ever sat in a room with your child crying and realized the people around you care more about a puppy's stomach than a baby's life? I stood up. My hands were cold, my heart even colder. There was only one can of special formula that Grace might handle. I had $43 to my name, and no choice but to try. I drove to the only 24-hour pharmacy in town. Grace was in the back seat whimpering, too tired to cry full. They had one can left. The only formula she ever halfway tolerated. It cost $38. I had 43. I bought it. No hesitation. Back home, I mixed it carefully, warmed it, prayed. Grace took the bottle, slowly, uncertain. She was hungry enough. She drank. I watched her eyes, her breathing, hoping this time would be different. At 6 a.m., the vomiting started. By 8, she was limp in my arms, quiet in the wrong way. By 10, we were in the ER. The lights were too bright, the questions too fast. The doctor looked at me like I had failed her. What happened to her normal feeding routine, she asked. My voice cracked. I told her. She blinked. Once. Then again. They gave human breast milk to a dog, she repeated, slow, stunned. And your infant didn't get fed. Yes, I whispered. The puppy needed nutrients, apparently. She looked away, jaw clenched. This qualifies as medical neglect, she said. I'm required to report it. I nodded. I didn't cry, because in that moment, I didn't care about saving face or family image. Grace lay there with a tiny IV in her arm, and I knew they had crossed a line no apology could fix. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days. Grace was hooked up to IV fluids, her tiny hand wrapped in gauze taped down so she wouldn't tug at the needle. I sat in a chair beside her. No bed, no rest. Just me, pumping, waiting, watching her chest rise and fall. Every few hours I'd try to rebuild my milk supply. My body still hurt, my heart even more. I cried each time I looked at her. I had failed her. Or maybe I had trusted the wrong people. My parents never showed up. Not once. They said they were tied up. But I knew the truth. Tiffany was doing a photo shoot with Sparkle. Her puppy influencer account had just hit 20,000 followers. That was more important than a grandchild in the hospital. But someone did come. Monica. My best friend since high school, now a family attorney. She walked in, took one look around, and said something I'll never forget. You know, David had life insurance, right? I nodded. I remembered the small policy from work. It barely covered funeral expenses. No, she said gently. There's another one. A real one. He took it out when you got pregnant. She paused, let the words sink in. $1 million policy, Evelyn. You're the beneficiary. And just like that, everything began to shift. I stared at Monica, unsure if I heard her right. $1 million. I had been living in a moldy basement, rationing diapers, stretching formula, crying into thrifted baby blankets, all while our money was sitting there untouched. His mother's been trying to reach you, Monica added. For months, I felt my stomach drop. She said your parents told her you weren't ready to talk. I closed my eyes. I could feel it now. The weight of everything they kept from me. They told me I had no one. They said David's family didn't care, that I was better off staying with them. But it was all a lie, a cruel, calculated lie. They isolated me, kept the truth buried, let me believe I had no options. While I sat on cold basement floors rocking a newborn, they let me suffer. For what control pride? I looked at Grace in her hospital bed. All this time there was another way, a better way. David had made sure we'd be okay. He planned ahead. He loved us enough to protect us even in death. But they took that gift and locked it away. Have you ever realized someone didn't just fail you? They chose to. That's the moment I stopped trying to belong to them and started preparing to leave. Monica didn't stop there. There's more, she said, voice low. David's parents, they've been worried sick. They didn't want to overstep. I blinked. They were looking for me. She nodded. They prepared a space for you, a mother-in-law suite, fully furnished. Been ready for months? Waiting, just in case you ever wanted to leave. I couldn't speak. My throat burned, my chest ached. The ache that comes when pain meets relief and turns into rage. They were there the whole time. David's family, warm, willing, ready to help. And I was kept from them, on purpose, while my parents remodeled a nursery for Tiffany's dog. They told me I had no place else to go. No help, no love, no one. That was the lie they fed me, and I swallowed it. I looked at Monica. My voice barely came out. They did this to trap me, didn't they? She didn't answer. She didn't need to, because I already knew. Grace stirred in her bed, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and in that moment, something inside me hardened. They saw us as burdens, as background noise to Tiffany's perfect life, but not anymore. I had a path now, and the first step was getting out before they could take anything else. Before I left, I needed one thing proof. I wasn't just walking away, I was holding them accountable. And turns out, I didn't have to look far. Tiffany had documented everything. Photos, videos, posts, stories, all about Sparkle's new milk diet. She bragged online, called it organic puppy care, said it was better than anything the vet offered. She even filmed herself pouring my breast milk into the puppy's bottle while Grace screamed in the background. She thought it was trendy, clever, something to go viral for, and it did. But not the way she wanted. Monica watched the clips with me, each one more infuriating than the last. This is gold, she said. You don't need to explain anything. They explained it themselves. Tiffany had posted timestamps, showed the bags with my handwriting on them. She laughed in one clip saying, "This stuff's liquid gold for dogs too." My stomach turned. But I kept watching because this wasn't just carelessness. It was theft of my body, my baby's health, my peace. In our state, using human bodily fluids for animals without medical clearance, it's illegal. And Tiffany had served it to Sparkle like it was a wellness smoothie. In front of 20,000 followers, I didn't need revenge, but justice. That I would fight for. And the evidence was already out there waiting to speak. The knock came while Grace was still in the hospital. I was sitting beside her crib, half asleep, still pumping, still waiting for my body to recover what was stolen. A nurse entered the room. "There's someone here to speak with you," she said gently. I stepped into the hallway. 3 people stood there. A woman from Child Protective Services, a man from Animal Control, and a police officer. I didn't panic, I just nodded. They'd seen the videos, they'd read the reports, they had questions. Tiffany's posts had been flagged by multiple mandated reporters, nurses, teachers, therapists, outraged mothers too. They came forward fast. They knew what they saw wasn't okay. And now the law agreed. The investigation moved quickly. The footage from Tiffany's Instagram, it became formal evidence. Feeding human breast milk to animals isn't just unclean, it can be dangerous. For dogs and definitely for children who go without. My parents were charged with child endangerment. Tiffany, she faced charges for animal abuse and theft of bodily fluids. Yes, it's a real thing. Still, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. But beneath that exhaustion, a spark had lit. Not for payback, but for protection. Grace deserved a life where no one treated her survival as optional. And this was just the beginning. While my parents dealt with charges, I made a different kind of appointment. I called Margaret David's mother. Her voice cracked the moment she heard mine. "Evelyn, is that really you?" she cried. I cried. We didn't even speak full sentences at first, just pieces, relief in fragments. Then she said, "The suite is still ready." We never stopped waiting. It wasn't just a spare room, it was a real space. Clean, warm, safe. They had prepared it the moment Grace was born, hoping one day I'd come. "We didn't want to pressure you," she whispered. "Your parents told us you needed space. We thought we were respecting your wishes." They thought they were doing the right thing. I felt the weight of what I'd missed, not just money, but belonging. David's family had been shut out just like me. I packed in silence. There wasn't much to take. A few clothes, some toys, my breast pump. Grace slept through most of it. Peaceful, finally. I left while my parents were in court. No goodbye. Just a note. Formula exists. Find your own. And then we left. No basement, no mold, no more being second to a dog. For the first time in months, I felt something steady under my feet. Not anger, not fear. A beginning. And behind it, a family who actually saw us. David's parents, Margaret and Thomas, welcomed us with open arms. They didn't ask questions, didn't press, just held Grace, held me. They cried when they saw her. She has his eyes, Thomas said softly. The house smelled like fresh bread. The guest room, our new room, had a window that let in morning sun. No mold, no damp, just peace. There was formula in the pantry, diapers stacked neatly, a crib already made. They hadn't given up on us, even when I thought everyone had. Margaret brought out a small box. Inside were letters. From David to me, written before Grace was born. He wrote about how proud he was, how scared, how ready. One line read, "If anything ever happens to me, I need you to know you're not alone. Our daughter is everything. Protect her, and let others protect you too." I held that letter for a long time. That night, Grace slept soundly for the first time in weeks. And for once, I did too. But peace wasn't the end of the story, because Tiffany's videos had gone public. And in the days that followed, the world began to react, not just with quiet concern, but with fury and the court of public opinion. It hit harder than anything I could have planned. The milk was only the start. The internet was about to make sure they paid for everything else too. It started slowly, a few comments under Tiffany's posts, then a few hundred more. Mothers, nurses, vet techs, even influencers. They were all saying the same thing: this isn't okay. Screenshots of her videos spread like wildfire. Dog drinks breast milk while baby goes hungry. People didn't scroll past that. It made headlines. Local first, then national. News anchors read Tiffany's captions out loud on live TV. Liquid Gold for Sparkle viewers were horrified. Within 48 hours, every brand she worked with pulled out. She lost sponsorships, partnerships, free products, all gone. Her inbox flooded. Some messages were cruel. Most were just furious. Mothers wrote, "I've cried in front of an empty fridge. You made it a trend." Veterinarians posted warnings. Human milk is not safe for dogs, and starving an infant is criminal. Tiffany made her account private, then deleted it. But it was too late. The videos had been downloaded, shared, reposted. She had made her choices public, and now the public had made theirs. My parents tried to stay quiet, pretend nothing happened, but whispers started at church, at the grocery store, at the golf course. Everyone knew. The image they'd worked so hard to maintain was crumbling, and still they hadn't seen the worst of it yet. Because the legal system was only just warming up. My mom stopped going to her book club. No one said she couldn't come. But the looks, the silence, did the job for them. Dad's golf buddies suddenly had conflicts every weekend. Neighbors stopped waving. Some crossed the street. At church, no one asked how Grace was doing because everyone already knew. Tiffany's name was posted in parenting forums, animal rescue groups, even legal blogs. And not just once. Every time someone reshared the story, a new wave of outrage followed. People weren't just angry, they were disgusted. My parents tried damage control. They posted a statement online. "We were trying to help both babies." People misunderstood. They called Sparkle a therapeutic companion, claimed Grace was never truly in danger, but the screenshot said otherwise. Tiffany's video, her laughing, showing off my labeled milk bags, was impossible to explain away. They weren't being misunderstood. They were being seen clearly, maybe for the first time. Then came the letters. From lawyers, from the court, child endangerment, animal misuse, bodily fluid violations. Probation was the best deal they could get. But it didn't end there. I filed a civil suit for emotional distress, for the medical bills, and yes, for the value of the stolen breast milk, $3 an ounce, 40 ounces. It added up. More than they were ready for, and much more than they deserved to lose. The judgment came fast. $50,000. That's what the courts said they owed for medical costs, emotional trauma, and the value of every ounce of stolen milk. My lawyer didn't even have to push hard. The videos, the hospital records, the online backlash, they spoke for themselves. My parents sat in silence during the hearing. Pale, small, Tiffany cried. Not for Grace, not for what she'd done, but for Sparkle, because the judge ordered the dog rehomed. The court decided Tiffany was unfit to care for any animal, let alone a vulnerable one. A family from a nearby rescue took Sparkle. They promised no designer clothes, no social media, no wellness milk, just love, safety, normalcy. Tiffany sobbed through the whole thing. My parents tried to argue, tried to shift blame, but the evidence was too loud and the public still watching. They had to sell their car to make the first payment, started borrowing from friends who stopped picking up the phone. Everything they built on image status control, gone. They called me once, asked if we could settle privately. I didn't answer. Because the truth was, this wasn't about money. It was about what they stole the moment they decided Grace didn't matter. And now they were finally paying, ounce by ounce, decision by decision. After the ruling, their world shrank fast. My parents stopped going out, drew the curtains, avoided eye contact at the mailbox. Tiffany moved back in with them. Without Sparkle. Without her makeup deals, dog brand sponsors, or influencer glow. She tried to launch a new page. It got reported within hours. Turns out, when you starve a baby to feed a puppy, people don't forget. As part of her probation, she wasn't allowed to have social media. She worked at a pet store now. Not the chic boutique kind. The big box chain, fluorescent lights, plastic name tag. Every time someone recognized her, they'd whisper, "She's the breast milk puppy girl," she had to explain. Every time. It followed her like a shadow. Meanwhile, my parents tried to hold on to what little they had left. But Tiffany's old ventures, her failed skincare brand, the luxury dog spa plan, the wellness line for teacup breeds, had drained more than they admitted. They'd refinanced the house to fund it all. And now, between the lawsuit probation costs and zero income foreclosure hit. The house, the one where I cried in the basement while they decorated Sparkle's nursery, was going up for auction. I watched the notice go up, didn't smile, but I felt steady. Because sometimes justice doesn't come all at once. It arrives slowly, in envelopes, court dates, quiet consequences. And then one day, it knocks on your front door. I didn't plan to buy the house. At first, I just watched the listing, quietly, from a distance. Part of me thought someone else would take it. Some stranger would move in and paint over the walls, erase everything. But then I remembered that basement, the mildew, the silence, Grace crying while Sparkle got lullabies upstairs, and something in me shifted. I called the auction office, paid in full, cash. $2 million gives you that kind of freedom. They didn't know I was the buyer, not right away, but I made sure they found out. A letter. No words, just the deed copy, signed by me. Tiffany screamed when she saw it. Mom didn't believe it. Dad called it a sick joke. But it was real. I didn't buy the house to live in it. That place never felt like home. I bought it so no one like them would ever step foot in it again. Then I called a local nonprofit, one that helps single mothers leaving abusive homes. Told them I had a building for them, fully paid. Do whatever you want with it, I said. Just promise no baby here will ever go hungry again. And that's how their dream home became my starting line. Not out of spite, but out of purpose. The nonprofit was stunned when I handed them the keys. They asked what I wanted in return. Just one thing, I said. Name it after my daughter. So they did. Grace's house. We gutted the basement first, tore out the old carpet, treated the mold, turned that dark, damp space into a playroom, bright, safe, full of color. Where I once sat crying into formula cans, mothers now watch their children laugh. Upstairs, we renovated Sparkle's old nursery. That room, it became a real nursery for real babies, cribs, warm blankets, nightlights, a shelf full of donated books. Then came the master bedroom, the one my parents guarded like a throne. We turned it into a lactation support center, hospital-grade pumps, freezers, clean stations, soft lighting, a space where no mother would ever be told to just pump more without help. Volunteers came. Donations poured in. Margaret helped hang the sign out front. Grace's house, where no baby goes without. Opening day was quiet but beautiful. A few families, some tears, soft music. I stood by the front window, holding Grace in my arms. She didn't know what any of it meant yet, but I did. I knew what it meant to be seen, to be supported, and I knew what it felt like to turn a place of pain into somewhere people could finally breathe, not for revenge, but for restoration. My parents now live in a one-bedroom apartment. It's cramped. No yard, no privacy. Close to a bus line, though. They pass Grace's house every day on their way to court-mandated community service. They try not to look, but they can't avoid it. The sign is big, bright, right where their rose bushes used to be. Sometimes I catch Mom parked across the street, engine running, just watching. Maybe she's hoping to see Grace. Maybe she's trying to feel something she lost. Dad doesn't stop. He just walks faster, head down. But every single day, they have to pass the home they built and the life they destroyed. Inside, children play, mothers pump in peace, volunteers hand out warm bottles, clean diapers, fresh hope. The same walls that once held silence and shame now hold something better. Love, safety, future. I framed the letter they sent me 6 months after losing the house. It wasn't an apology, just complaints. They said I had overreacted, that it was just a little milk, that I'd ruined their lives. It hangs in my office at Grace's house, right above the freezer full of donated breast milk, where I can see it every day. And remember why I built all this, not out of anger, but because babies come first, always. Grace is 2 now. She's strong, curious, always moving, always reaching for the next thing. Every milestone feels like a small miracle. First steps on soft grass, first words whispered in quiet mornings. She calls Margaret grandma, spends weekends in the garden learning to plant things that grow with love and time. She doesn't know what happened. She doesn't know about Sparkle, or the basement, or what they chose over her, and she never will, because that's the point. Her world is filled with people who choose her every single time. Last week we were at the park. She handed me a dandelion, tiny fingers stained with joy. Across the playground I saw my mother, alone on a bench, a little older, a lot quieter. She saw us, saw Grace laugh, saw her run toward me, arms open, calling Mama. Our eyes met, just for a second. Maybe she felt regret, maybe she didn't. But I turned away, gently, firmly. We had somewhere to be. Dinner with the Carter family, a table full of love and stories and second chances, the kind of place where babies are cherished, and their food never ever goes to a dog. Some say revenge is sweet, but this was something deeper. We didn't just survive, we chose to build. And we're not done yet. That night at the freezer, they thought it ended there. Just a few missing bags, just a dog, just one daughter overreacting. They had no idea what they set in motion, because grief is one thing. But grief mixed with rage, with love, with motherhood, that becomes something else entirely. I didn't just lose trust that night. I lost silence, and once I started speaking, people listened. Grace's house became more than a shelter. It became a voice. We started small breast pump rentals, freezer storage diapers, then word spread. Hospitals called, nurses referred young moms, shelters reached out. Mothers who had nowhere to go came with newborns in their arms, and we told them, you're not alone. We added counseling services, nutrition support, legal help. We hired survivors, women who had once stood at their own empty freezers. Now they were standing for someone else. Every month, our wall of names grows, babies fed, mothers supported, stories reclaimed. And the donations, they came from strangers, friends, Even a few quiet supporters from the very neighborhood that once looked away. People began to see what my parents refused to. You don't get to decide which baby matters more, and you don't get to take love and call it inconvenience. They thought they ended something that night, but really, they started a movement. It happened on a Tuesday. An envelope arrived at Grace's house. Plain, unmarked, just my name in careful print. Inside was a letter from David's former employer. They had discovered a clerical error, something buried in old HR files. Turns out the life insurance I received was only half of what David had left behind. There was another policy, a second million. It had been delayed in processing, misfiled, missed. But now, it was mine. $2 million. I sat at my desk holding that letter stunned. Not because of the number, though it was life-changing, but because of what it meant. David had prepared for everything. He believed in me, in us, in a future I couldn't see yet. When he passed, he knew life wouldn't be fair, but he wanted to give me a fighting chance anyway. I looked out the window. Across the street, I saw my parents' old house, or what used to be theirs, now filled with hope, noise, laughter. I thought about how hard they worked to keep me small, how they hid the first million, tried to bury my grief beneath their control, and now their own house had been signed over to something bigger than all of us. They lost everything trying to hold power, and I gained more than they ever imagined by letting go. I could have used that second million to build a new life somewhere far away. Start fresh, disappear, never look back. But that's not what David would have done, and it's not what Grace needed to see, so I did something that surprised even me. I gave it away, not all at once, but with intention. I expanded Grace's house, bought the building next door. It became a daycare for working mothers. Then we added a kitchen, free meal prep classes, groceries for families in need. We hired staff mothers who had once been clients. They brought experience, heart, and strength you don't learn in school. We created scholarship funds, emergency housing grants, a hotline. We partnered with hospitals, with shelters, with doulas. Grace's house was no longer just a home. It was a network. Every time I signed a check, I thought about that empty freezer, about standing there alone holding my crying baby while they fed my body to a dog. And I thought no woman should ever feel that powerless again. This wasn't charity. This was justice. Quiet. Ongoing, relentless. I didn't need a bigger house. I needed a bigger legacy. And every mother who walked through our doors, she became part of it. Because when they took my baby's food, they didn't just wake a mother. They funded a mission. And I chose to make it matter. My parents thought they lost a house, 4 walls, a mortgage, a piece of real estate with memories they could spin. But that wasn't the real loss. What they lost was Grace. They lost her laugh, her first words, her tiny hands learning to hold a spoon. They missed her first birthday, her first step, the first time she said, "I love you." They missed watching her grow into herself, strong, joyful, whole. Margaret and Thomas never tried to replace them. They just showed up every day, reading to her, walking her to the garden, holding her when she scraped her knee. Grace doesn't ask about my parents. She doesn't know them. And honestly, she doesn't miss what she never felt. Sometimes I wonder if they realize it. If they know the greatest punishment wasn't court fees or foreclosure. It was being forgotten by the child they once deemed less valuable than a teacup dog. At holidays, we set extra places at the table. Not for them, for neighbors, for volunteers, for the mothers who became sisters through shared pain. Grace always has someone to hug her goodnight, always has someone clapping when she learns something new. They traded all of that for pride, for image, for silence. And now, they sit in a quiet apartment with nothing left but a memory they can't rewrite because the story was already told. And this time, it wasn't theirs to control. They used to care so much about what people thought. Image was everything. Clean lawns, church potlucks, matching Christmas cards sent in gold-trimmed envelopes. They kept secrets behind smiles, buried cruelty under calm voices. But now, there's no smile that can hide what the internet already knows. No envelope big enough to cover a headline that read, "Baby starved while puppy thrived, parents face charges." They lost more than a home. They lost credibility. Their church sent a letter, politely asked them to worship elsewhere. Book club was disbanded, though everyone kept meeting without mom. Dad's golf group suddenly didn't have space on the course. The neighborhood association posted a reminder about community standards. Everything they once clung to for status slipped away like sand through fingers. Even now they try to rewrite the story. To anyone who'll still listen, they call it a misunderstanding. They say I was hormonal, overwhelmed, that I blew things out of proportion. But screenshots don't lie, medical records don't lie, and Grace thriving, loved, full of light is the loudest truth of all. They wanted the world to see them as good people. Now the world sees them clearly, not as villains, but as the kind of people who had a choice. And chose wrong, again and again, until there was no one left to believe them, not even their granddaughter. Tiffany tried to rebrand, new name, new Instagram handle, different hair, soft lighting, pet-friendly candles. But the internet doesn't forget. No matter how many filters she used, her name always came back to one thing: the breast milk puppy girl. She applied for brand deals under aliases every time someone would recognize her. A vet tech, a mom, a former follower. All it took was one person, and the sponsors vanished. Even in the pet store where she now worked, customers whispered, "She's the one, right? The sister who fed her nephew's milk to a dog." She wore a name tag that said Tia. But it didn't matter. She could change her name 100 times. She couldn't change what she'd done. Part of her probation required weekly counseling. No pets, no social media. That last rule hurt her the most. For someone who once lived for likes, silence is a cruel sentence. Sometimes I wonder if she ever looks at Grace's house, if she drives past and sees the line of mothers waiting for help, volunteers passing out diapers, kids laughing in the playroom. If she knows that the nursery she painted blush pink for sparkles now holds real babies, real lullabies, real love. She doesn't cry on camera anymore. But I imagine when she's alone, she knows exactly who she became, and that no amount of fame could ever unwrite her name. My parents thought they'd retire early. That was the plan. Travel, golf, Sunday brunches with their friends. They'd talk about downsizing gracefully like it was a lifestyle choice. Now mom stocks shelves at a grocery store, night shift, wears orthopedic shoes and a stiff name tag that reads Helen. Dad does security at a parking garage, midnight to 6 a.m. Sometimes in the cold, sometimes in the rain. No more brunch, no more golf. They don't talk about retirement anymore because it's gone. Along with the savings they drained trying to clean up Tiffany's mess. Along with the house, the car, the image. They used to smile in family photos with matching sweaters. Now they avoid cameras. They used to host Thanksgiving. Now they microwave dinner from plastic trays alone in a one-bedroom unit. The same people who once looked down on me now hand coupons to strangers who don't recognize them. And the few who do, they look away because the story followed them. Into stores, into waiting rooms, onto job applications. No one wants to hire the parents who let a baby starve while their daughter filmed a dog. They never apologized, not once. But life did the talking for them, one shift at a time, one long quiet hour after another. That was the retirement they earned. 6 months passed, no calls, no visits, no messages. Then one day a letter arrived, no return address, just my name. My handwriting recognition was instant, Mom's. I opened it, unsure what I hoped to find. It wasn't an apology, not even close. 3 pages of blame. She said I'd ruined their lives over a little milk. Said the media twisted the truth. Said Tiffany had been misunderstood. Said I had turned Grace against them. She called me dramatic, ungrateful. Said I'd chosen strangers over blood. I read it once. Then again, still no remorse, no responsibility, not a single sentence that acknowledged what they took from me. From Grace. I didn't cry. I just placed the letter in a frame. Hung it above my desk at Grace's house, right next to a collage of thank you notes from the mothers we'd helped, some written in crayon, some signed with baby footprints, all of them real, unlike the letter. I keep it there as a reminder not of their cruelty, but of what I overcame. Because survival doesn't always look like escaping. Sometimes it looks like building something they can't touch. Sometimes it looks like holding your daughter in a room full of light while the past knocks and finds the door locked permanently. Every time a mother walks through our doors, I see a reflection of myself. A woman worn down by silence, by judgment, by battles no one talks about. She carries fears I know well, fear that her baby won't eat, fear that she's failing, fear of being alone. But here those fears meet something new. Hope. Hope wrapped in warm blankets, hope in fresh diapers and free breast pumps, hope in voices that say, "You're not alone." We've helped thousands of families since Grace's house opened. Mothers who once stood at empty freezers now leave with smiles. Babies who arrived hungry leave with full bellies. Stories of survival become stories of strength. And every day that strength spreads, from one mother to another, one child to another, one community to the next. It's more than charity. It's a movement. A promise that no woman should have to choose between feeding her child and fighting the people who should have loved her most. Because when we rise together, no empty freezer can hold us back. And Grace's house isn't just a place. It's a beacon, a home, a new beginning. What started as a night of heartbreak became so much more. From the empty freezer to Grace's house, the journey was long, filled with pain, with betrayal, but also with love. David's life insurance wasn't just money, it was a lifeline, a seed, a gift born from loss. It gave me the chance to turn darkness into light, to build a place where babies don't go hungry, where mothers find support, not judgment, where community replaces isolation, and where every story of pain is met with one of hope. Grace's house is proof that even the hardest moments can lead to new beginnings, that from the ashes of cruelty, something beautiful can grow, and that no matter how deep the wound, love can be louder. This story isn't just mine. It belongs to every mother who's ever felt forgotten, every child who's ever been second, and every soul who believes that justice is more than punishment. It's healing, because in the end, we don't just survive what breaks us, we rise. Together. Even with Grace's house thriving, I knew the fight wasn't over. The scars from that night, the lies, the neglect ran deep. It wasn't just about rebuilding, it was about changing minds, changing systems, making sure no mother ever stood at an empty freezer again. We began working with local hospitals, social workers, and lawmakers, pushing for better support for breastfeeding moms, better protection for infants, and harsher consequences for those who neglected their care. Each step forward brought new challenges, opposition, skepticism, sometimes outright hostility. But with every mother who found help, with every baby who thrived, the fire inside me grew stronger. Grace's story became a symbol, a call to action, for families like ours who've been silenced, for babies who deserve more than broken promises. I shared my story on panels and interviews and community meetings, not for pity, but for power, to turn personal pain into collective progress. Because surviving isn't enough. We have to fight. And the fight, just like motherhood, is lifelong. One of the most unexpected blessings came from Dr. Rachel Hayes. She was the pediatrician who treated Grace in the ER, a compassionate, fierce woman who refused to turn away. After Grace's case, she reached out privately. She told me she wanted to help not just my family, but all families like ours. Dr. Hayes had connections in the local news. Her husband was a well-known anchor. Together, they believed this story needed to be told, not just as scandal, but as a catalyst. She helped arrange interviews, set up meetings with reporters. Soon, the story of a baby starved while a puppy thrived was everywhere. National headlines, viral shares, emotional testimonies from other mothers. It was overwhelming, but also powerful. Suddenly, the community was watching. Sponsors dropped Tiffany. Partnerships vanished. Pressure mounted on the family to face consequences. And for the first time since that frozen night, I felt less alone. I had allies, not just friends or family, but people willing to use their voices to fight injustice. Together, we amplified Grace's story, and it became more than a personal fight. It became a movement with the power to change lives, and that movement was just getting started. The story went viral faster than I ever imagined. Social media exploded. Thousands shared it. Mothers flooded the comments sharing their own stories of neglect, resilience, and hope. News outlets picked it up. National networks interviewed me. They showed the videos Tiffany posted. The outrage was palpable. People were furious that a baby was starved while a puppy was pampered. Tiffany lost every sponsorship within 48 hours. Her followers dropped. Brands cut ties. Her once thriving influencer career crumbled overnight. My parents faced waves of judgment not just online but in their community. The church whispered. Neighbors whispered. Even old friends stopped returning calls. The neighborhood association received complaints. Everywhere they went, they faced the fallout. The legal consequences were severe. Probation for child endangerment, animal abuse charges for Tiffany. The world had made it clear prioritizing a dog over a baby wasn't just wrong, it was unforgivable. But amidst the chaos, I found strength. Strength in knowing justice was taking shape. Strength in the voices of thousands rallying for change, and strength in Grace growing stronger every day. Her story had become a beacon, a warning, and a promise that no child would be forgotten again. After the scandal broke, my parents' world shrank fast. Their friends stopped calling. Invitations disappeared. Mom was quietly asked to leave her book club. No formal ban, just a cold shoulder that said everything. Dad's golf buddies suddenly had scheduling conflicts every weekend. Neighbors who once greeted them with smiles crossed the street to avoid them. At church, they no longer sat in their usual pews. The congregation whispered behind hands. Their reputation built over decades crumbled like dust. They tried to explain it away. We were trying to help, they said. That puppy needed special care too, but no one believed them. The community had spoken. They had chosen their side. And it wasn't my family's. The isolation was crushing, but it was also justice. Because actions have consequences. And when you put a dog above a baby, people remember. They remember, and they don't forget. The legal consequences hit hard. They were charged with child endangerment. The court didn't take it lightly. For my parents, probation was the best outcome they could hope for. Tiffany faced animal abuse charges and a lesser-known crime theft of bodily fluids. Yes, it's a real charge. Using human breast milk for animals without permission is illegal in our state. The court ordered Tiffany to rehome Sparkle. No more designer clothes, no Instagram fame. Sparkle went to a family who promised only love and care. But the financial damage was just beginning. I filed a civil suit for medical bills, emotional distress, and the value of the stolen milk. About $3 an ounce, 40 ounces stolen, it added up to $50,000. My parents had to sell their car to make the first payment, borrowed money from friends who eventually stopped answering calls. Everything they'd built, their reputation, their savings crumbled. And when they called me asking to settle privately, I didn't respond. Because this wasn't about money, it was about accountability. For every ounce of milk taken, for every tear Grace cried, and for every moment they chose a puppy over their granddaughter. Their lives unraveled quickly. Mom no longer went to book club meetings. Dad's golf buddies stopped inviting him. They stopped answering calls. Old friends turned away. The social circle they once treasured vanished. Their luxury was gone. Gone were the dinners at fancy restaurants, the trips to the country club, the weekends filled with laughter and comfort. Now Mom stocked shelves at a grocery store during the night shift. Dad worked security late into the night. The house they'd refinanced multiple times to support Tiffany's failed ventures was lost. Foreclosure notices stacked up. They were forced into a small apartment. No privacy, no peace, no dignity. They lived with the weight of their choices every day, and the silence in their new home was loud. No celebrations, no holiday gatherings, just the cold reminder of what they'd lost. Their image was shattered, their pride replaced by regret, and the people who once sought their company now looked away. Because sometimes the consequences of neglect aren't just legal or financial. They're personal, deeply personal, and impossible to escape. 6 months after the verdict, a letter arrived. No call, no visit, just an envelope with my name. It was from Mom. I hesitated before opening it, hoping for something, anything. But what I found was far from an apology. 3 pages filled with blame. She said I had overreacted, that I ruined their lives over a little milk, that Tiffany was misunderstood, that I had chosen strangers over family. Her words cut deep, but there was no remorse, no acknowledgement of what they took from me or from Grace. I read the letter twice. Then I did something unexpected. I framed it, hung it in my office at Grace's house, right above the freezer full of donated milk, a reminder, not of their cruelty, but of my strength, of survival, of how I turned pain into purpose, because sometimes healing isn't forgetting, it's remembering. And choosing to rise anyway. Every day, as I walk through Grace's house, I'm reminded of what we've built. What started as heartbreak turned into hope. The mothers who come here bring their own stories of struggle, of loneliness, of fear. But here they find community, a place to breathe, to heal, to be seen, to be heard. Each story adds to the strength we carry, and every smile, every baby fed is a victory. For them, for Grace, for every mother who ever felt invisible. The letter from my mom sits above the freezer, a symbol of the past. But it doesn't define us. We've chosen a different path, one of resilience, of empowerment, of love. I want every mother who comes here to know she is not alone. Her struggles matter. Her child matters. And no matter what the world throws her way, she can rise. Because this isn't just about survival. It's about building a future where every child is cherished and every mother is supported. That's the legacy we're creating, one life at a time. Grace is thriving. She's hit every milestone with joy and determination. Her laughter fills the rooms of Grace's house. She's learning to walk, to talk, to explore. Every new word, every step feels like a victory. Not just for her, for me, for all the mothers who stood where I stood. She calls Margaret grandma, spends weekends in the garden, baking cookies and planting flowers. She's surrounded by love, real love. Not the conditional kind, not the love that ranks you beneath a dog. She has a family now, a family that chooses her every day. I watch her grow with pride, knowing what she's overcome, knowing what she will never have to face, because this time, she's the one who is chosen, the one who is cherished. And every day I'm reminded, no matter what the past holds, the future is ours to write. And Grace, she's writing her story in bold, beautiful strokes, a story of love, of strength, of hope. Our hope? That night, standing in front of the empty freezer, I had no idea what was coming. No idea that grief and rage could fuel something greater, that the pain of losing my baby's milk could turn into a mission to protect mothers everywhere. They gave my daughters food to a puppy. I gave them a house, a home for mothers and babies who deserve better. As we sit around our Sunday dinner table now, surrounded by laughter and stories, I feel peace. Not just because Grace is safe, but because our story is bigger than pain. It's about choice, love, justice, and healing. If you've ever felt invisible, overlooked, hurt by those who should love you most, know this. Your story matters, your voice matters, and the fight for dignity is never in vain. There's more to come, more mothers to help, more voices to raise, more love to give, because this is not the end. It's only the beginning, and together we will keep rising for every baby who deserves a chance. For every mother who refuses to be silent. Our journey has just begun.